May the 4th be with you. We have our latest set of OTA over-the-air updates coming to Marvel Snap today. They are live now if you are watching this on YouTube or currently on twitch.tv/Jeff Hoagland as we are recording it in the present. Let's take a look here at what the changes are and what the justification for these changes are. As we're working on this update, the Marvel Snap metagame has a good amount of variety and players are experimenting with new strategies. I agree with that. So we won't be rocking the boat too much. Last week, we featured 4 changes we're still waiting to fully evaluate. So this week just includes a few small buffs to cards that could use some love. That's great. Like, when they talked initially about doing weekly updates, there were a lot of people that were playing Chicken Little saying weekly is too often. They're just going to constantly nerf the best things. And they definitely shouldn't nerf cards every week. But I think there are basically always cards every single week that you could look at them and go, these cards have bad win rates. These cards have low play rates. Let's push the numbers on them a little bit and see if we can improve either of those two things. These changes, buffing cards that are underplayed, is kind of like introducing new cards to the game, right? Like this first one here, Orca. Orca might as well not have existed at 6'9 plus 5. At 6'11 plus 5, we're looking at 16 stats for 6 energy, which might not be enough still, but it's certainly better than it was previously. And this is high enough that I think we could potentially work on some things with it, you know? Combine this with Claw, combine it with Green Goblin, combine it with Mr. Fantastic, like maybe he could be winning a path for us. This isn't very complicated. Orca released low, consistently one of our least played cards and a low win rate. He's vulnerable to splash damage in a meta game where being able to counter Galactus has a high priority for players. This is a good observation. Orca wasn't just bad because of his numbers. He's bad because the cards you're playing to beat Galactus also make Orca worse because they incidentally take away his bonus, right? So we're just kicking the base power up to see what happens. We don't expect Orca to suddenly start tearing up competitive ranks, but this frees us to make him stronger. I think I agree with that. I think this is maybe we could do some fringe stuff, but probably still not top tier. Ooh, the Collector. When a card enters your hand from anywhere except your deck, +1 power. Still, and we're going to go to 2/2. Those of us who were playing in the beta no doubt remember the glory days of the Collector and the nerf that was merited that brought him in line with on-curve play in some discard and dino decks. However, he's largely been squeezed out of those decks as well without finding a new home. So hopefully he'll be a bit more competitive with other 2-cost cards at this rate to start earning those slots back or showing up in new decks like Bounce. Yeah, I think this is a good take. So, like, part of the problem with Collector was that at 2/1, even if you generated 3 cards in your hand, which isn't a small feat, right? Like, generating 3 cards, like, only Moon Girl or, like, things like Nick Fury or Helicarrier generate 3 cards on their own. He would still only be a 2/4. And a 2/4 is just kind of below rate compared to things like Angela and Lizard to a degree or Scorpion and other 2-drops. So kicking him up to a 2/2, where if you generate at least 3 cards, he's on rate and then potentially could still get above rate, makes sense. I like in general. Oh, and actually this next change ties in what I'm about to say. They're updating Luke Cage here, giving him a 2nd point of power as well. I really like the balancing around 2-drops in this patch and the previous one. Like, Lizard and in the past Angela, we've like kind of always had standouts. This is the best 2-drop that you play. And with this Collector change and now Luke Cage and other spots, which 2-drop you play should depend on which deck you're playing. And this Luke Cage, this is easily the most exciting buff out of all of these. Like, Cerebro 2, I think, has been this close to being very good. Shuri and Red Skull and Thanos and Soulstone have been on the downswing. And Luke Cage was a card that some people like to play in Cerebro 2 even with 1 power. I was of the opinion that he wasn't good enough then. This card is certainly good enough in Cerebro 2 with 2 base points of power. The 2 most popular decks with Luke are middling performers on numbers, and the Surge to Super Scroll plus the buff to Enchantress have indirectly weakened him. We considered testing 3 power briefly, but recall how the Hazmat buff to 2 power months ago killed a delightful Cerebro 1 deck. Oh, chat, I feel seen. They did, in fact, murder my delightful Cerebro 1 deck. They do care. They know. This change restores that as a combo as an interesting option for Cerebro 2, since Luke protects the deck from a handful of meddlesome locations as well. The added power to Luke makes it more viable as a tech card in other decks, which might well come in handy if Afflict strategies reach a new high in the near future. There's some foreshadowing for some high evolutionary. This is we know high evo is coming down the pipeline. A new high in the near future. All right. He's coming, chat. 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Thanks for tuning in. We're still gathering data on these updates and observing the impact of your play experience. So we appreciate all of the passion and feedback around these weekly changes. Just to make sure you understand my full passion around these weekly changes, Second Dinner. 1, these are great. I love these small buffs. 2, fuck Galactus. All right, that's all the passion I have. We have a positive and we have a negative. This is great. I'm so glad that we don't have any changes that are just like random downticks on things. I think reading what they're saying here, I agree fully with what they're saying. People are experimenting with things. People are trying. There's no obvious clear winners. This Stature Miles Morales deck is like maybe a front runner, but it's definitely too soon to take any action on that. And I like that we're just like, okay, here, have some new toys to like deck build with. Appreciate everybody that watched us record this feedback live here at twitch.tv/Jeff Hoagland. We're going to be trying out some of these new cards. If you're watching this on YouTube in the future, you could expect a Cerebro 2 highlight tomorrow morning on the channel. Trying out some Luke Cage action in there. Let's get to brewing, Twitch chat.